So I've titled this slide as the past and the present. Now, there was a time not so long ago, even as recently as 5 or 7 years ago, when being in marketing meant, you're working with a creative agency, you're working with PR agencies, you're working with research agencies, both qualitative and quantitative, studying research reports, looking at brand metrics, and by and large guarding company and brand logos, making sure that the integrity of logos and communication guidelines, etc., are being adhered to. But all that has changed dramatically. There's a new term today that is being used called the VUCA world, which stands essentially for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. For old timers like me, I think a large part of our lives have been uh, functioning in the VUCA world, but there is a term for it. And what's happening today is incremental growth is no longer acceptable. Incremental business growth is no longer acceptable, not only to CEOs, but to the board, to stakeholders, and to anyone who has anything to do with your business. So today's CEOs are seeking disruptive growth. They're seeking growth that has nothing to do with the past. 8 or 9 or 10%. You're in popular discourse, you have seen the comments around the GDP forecasts that the government puts out, and how there's been several sort of lots of argument around 6%, 7%, etc. So it has even reached policy making levels where no one is interested and no one is satisfied with what is called the Hindu rate of growth, and people are looking at disruptive growth, which is significantly higher than the previous trends. Now, disruptive growth can mean many things to many people, but Accenture's strategy documents define it as meaning developing ecosystems with non-traditional players. So that means getting into partnerships and relationships with players who you would not normally associate with. So for instance, in the alcohol business, associating with someone that advertises and enables delivery of alcohol on the digital platform, which is something that you would not do. Expanding current products onto new platforms to deliver expanded service models to customers, which means looking at non-traditional ways of reaching out to your consumers. Now, at Kingfisher, for instance, we have developed an app called Pictures, which is an in-house app, which is the largest downloaded app for your nightlife activities in the country today. We already have about 250,000 downloads. And we're reaching out to a completely different audience segment through what would be called a new platform. And obviously also increasing revenue through what we call next gen. The next gen can mean millennial customers. It can mean technology. It can mean blockchain, chatbots, artificial intelligence, all sorts of other stuff. But basically, doing things completely differently from the way you've done them in the past is the only way that disruptive growth can come. And that is what CEOs are expecting. Now, in any organization, the responsibility for delivering disrupted growth exists with many people. It sort of exists with the chief sales officer, with the chief marketing officers, with maybe a COO, which is chief operating officer. So it is a little fractured, it is a little diffused. But really speaking, the CMO's feet are closest to the fire. So the CMO, or the chief marketing officer, is really the one that the CEO looks to most often now to deliver this disruptive growth. And there's an interesting statistic that says that almost half of all CEOs, which is 44% specifically, expect disruptive growth to come from CMOs, but only a little above a third of the CMOs feel the same way. So obviously there is a mismatch between CEO expectations of the CMO and the CMO's understanding of what the CEO expects. And this obviously causes gaps in performances. But more on that later.